Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. It's a busy week on the podcast this week, and it's been a busy few days since we last recorded, or since many of you maybe have tuned into an episode. Of course, with the January transfer window open coming up on the show, we'll review the latest signings as since the last recording. We've made two signings, Phil, so lots of exciting things to chat about on that front. Less exciting things to chat about on the pitch as the Dons played out a goalless draw against Hearts at the weekend. We'll review the action from that game. And it's a busy week on the pitch coming up. We'll be previewing the Rangers game on this episode. Those that are maybe watching us on YouTube or maybe don't know about us being on YouTube, we will have a live full-time reaction. Maybe wishing we didn't agree to that straight away. So if you are a member or a subscriber of our YouTube channel, get those notifications on. We'll be live at full time on Wednesday reacting to that game. And we'll also have our thoughts ahead of the Elgin Scottish Cup clash. So busy week coming up. And also, Phil, the BBC were looking for a reliable replacement because the last contributors weren't so they chose us to be the fan voice on the BBC, a podcast that's not really been reliable for producing content over the last week, but exciting opportunity for us to expand our thoughts to other people.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know if the BBC know what they've let themselves in for. But no, really looking forward to more avenues I can annoy people with my Don's opinions, the better in my verdict. But yeah, and I think Wednesday will be fun as well. You know, can't promise will be more enjoyable than Chris Boyd and Chris Sutton, who I have no doubts will be on the panel. But you know, we'll try our best to.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too much doom and gloom, but usually these live full-time reactions are fun to do. We're obviously not live on this episode, but we do kind of have a bit of an immediate reaction because we'll start the podcast off with the signing news. And Alfie Dorington was announced today on Monday, the 13th of January, as the latest January transfer signing, joining from Tottenham Hotspur on loan. Having just signed a new contract with Spurs until 2029, the central defender comes up to the northeast to ply his trade between now and the end of the season. A young player, certainly highly rated at Spurs, another centre back to join Christoph Klarer, who we'll come on to in a little bit. Excited by this one, or are you still a bit in the kind of unknown quantity segment?
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm a little bit in the unknown quantity. I mean, from what I've seen and read about him, he's obviously, like you say, very highly regarded by his peers, his coaches, and fans alike. So, I think it'll be interesting to see him coming in. Obviously, a player that Jimmy's identified that would fit his style. I think the only thing for me, obviously, at 19 years old and not really too much sort of first team minutes, with the sort of drought that a lot of young Scottish players are getting, not only at Aberdeen but across the top flight of Scottish football. You know, would there maybe have been a chance for someone from our own ranks to sort of fill those boots? But no, I'm excited to see him coming in. He seems like he's really eager to go, and obviously picked us over competition from down south as well. So someone who's obviously bought into the project off the bat as well. So yeah, hopefully see him maybe in on Wednesday night. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing him in the squad soon.
Yeah, I think he's going to be included in the squad. Whether he goes straight into the lineup remains to be seen. I kind of suspect he will. Listen to his Red TV interview earlier. A few snippets, obviously, I shared with both you and Callum in our group chat. He first learnt of the interest a week ago and felt it was a no-brainer of a move after speaking to the manager. And I think obviously you just mentioned there was interest from other clubs within the EFL. And I think to fend off that interest and lure him up to Scotland is maybe says a lot about Jimmy Tilleen, but also potentially says a lot about the opportunities he's either expecting or potentially being promised. And he wants to repay that faith shown that Jimmy Tilleen has in him. He did say this with a smile and a bit of a laugh that he aims to win every game and also wants to start as many games as possible. I think any player that's coming to another club on loan is going to look to start as many games as possible and get as many minutes. And comparing, obviously, his current Tottenham teammate, James Maddison, and the impact that Maddison had at his time in Aberdeen. Seeing the move as a stepping stone and platform that James Maddison used it, hopefully he can do similar. And I think, when you hear loan players speak about using the club as a platform, I don't really view that too much as a negative. I think it actually works in our favor, because if they're going to play to their full potential, obviously providing they're actually decent, then we benefit in that short spell that they're here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're never going to be able to compete with Spurs in the terms of allure as a club, for top quality players. I don't think anyone's going to be too offended at the idea of him sort of using this as maybe an opportunity to springboard his chances of making it into that Spurs backline. Um, it's quite an interesting move, obviously, just with the lack of defenders that Spurs have got at the moment anyway.
Mm.
But obviously, I guess that shows that they are wanting him to get that experience and that they do have kind of plans for him to be involved in the squad. So definitely a player that should hopefully bring us a little bit of improvement across the back line.
Yeah, and he was asked about his strengths. He mentioned the heading ability down to his height, pace. I liked how he mentioned he's pacey, so he can deal with a ball in behind. Someone's clearly been watching the highlights. And he feels he's a good dribbler and can take the ball up through midfield. I noticed Jay Moyer kind of shared a highlight reel which shows him very comfortable in possession. He also thinks he's got a good range of passing and it can quite easily break the lines. Again, sounds like a defender that will suit the Jimmy Talleen style. So excited to see what he can offer, and he's ready to go for Wednesday. So we'll see if he's included. But on those last kind of two strengths that he identified in himself, the range of passing and the breaking of lines, takes us on to Christoph Tobers, who was announced as a signing. Looks to be, well, the club announced as an undisclosed, but those of you on Twitter will have seen that it was probably rumoured to be around the £600,000 mark. So thank you, Connor Barron, for funding that move. What did you make of his debut? He played an hour in that game on Sunday, so we'll discuss him now rather than mention him during the Heart segment. But I felt he was very composed, probably unlucky not to score. I know you maybe got a better view of that chance in the first half, but I think he looked probably the most competent defender we've seen for a while.
Yeah, I mean to come straight in. I know obviously in his sort of interview when he first signed for the club, he'd mentioned that he'd be loud on the pitch, he'd be communicating, and really trying to be a strong leader on the pitch, which I think he definitely was for his cameo before coming off. Like you say, really composed on the ball, really positive as well. I really enjoyed the fact that he was willing to take the ball, step up, and almost go into a holding midfielder's position at times and try and spray the ball out wide to Keskinen or up to Nisbet to hold it up. So yeah, really happy with how he played. Threw his body online a couple of times as well to sort of clear balls into the box. So looks like we've got a very good centre half on our hands there, hopefully. And yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, I think, you could tell as well he's not played for, I think it's at least 5 weeks, because I think he had a couple of games suspension before the winter break over in Switzerland. And he was very much keen to stress that, not only in the pre-match press conference, which he was selected for, but also his kind of Red TV interview when he was announced as a signing. But, he's maybe not the most physically imposing. I don't know if I was expecting him to be a bit bulkier, but I think he carries himself well on the pitch, and I totally agree. I think the way he was kind of commanding and willing to take the ball out of defence and kind of not afraid to distribute the ball, certainly better than what we saw Angus MacDonald do at right centre back, was good to see. And you can see why it's a player Jimmy Talleen identified. Again, kind of comfortable on the ball, happy to take it out. I'm still not really kind of happy with the way we play from goal kicks and pass it along the back 3 or 4 times before moving up the pitch. But yeah, good to see a centre back confident on the ball. Again, in terms of signings, it looks like the club are close, not yet announced, to announcing the signing of Alexander Jensen. I know it was discussed in our group chat. There's a journalist over in Sweden that's kind of announced that the two clubs have agreed a 600,000 approximate fee. I think it's actually does it not work out in the translation that Calm sent to be 7 million Danish kroner in the end, which sounds crazy. I always love the conversion between here in Denmark and Norway. It sounds like you're spending a heap of money, but when you put it into pounds, it's really not. Just waiting on personal terms to be agreed between him and the club. Again, probably going to be too soon for Wednesday night's game. Hopefully, maybe an opportunity to get him in before the Scottish Cup. But again, good to see the club making strides. And I think what we can't argue at this stage, when we look at the money involved in the Tobers deal, the Jensen deal, possibly in the Oakles deal as well with wages, given the money Preston spent on him, that the board aren't afraid, or I was going to say shy, of backing Jimmy Tillene so far in this January transfer window. And also what I feel is so far in a notoriously difficult window to deal with, the signings have been shrewd.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say that. I mean, even throw in the Palaversa extension there as well. The clubs. I mean, how often have we screamed for the club to back a manager, especially in the January transfer window when they really need the reinforcements in? And if you add up the sort of two sort of confirmed fees that we've paid for Tobers and Jensen, and then like say, Ockles are probably looking at the guts of another £1 million player similar to Tope's price tag. You're looking at well over 2 million, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of football. But when you isolate it down to Aberdeen, it's a lot of money for us to spend, and it is really good to see that we are reinvesting in the club, and it's not just sitting pocketed or going into sort of things that don't really have an effect on the on pitch product.
Yeah, and I think obviously, you're mentioning around about £1 million for Ockles. I know that's something we discussed in the pub on Saturday. That's given the club have put in the option to buy, and we were just assuming, given Preston spent around 1.7, it could be into seven figures Preston won. So assuming it was that figure, yeah, we've maybe spent around about 2 million on the three players so far, which is a bold investment, but also a show. I think again, when people are speaking in regards to Jimmy Tillene and the 3-year project, it does show that the board have faith in him, and we as fans need to. You mentioned the Palaversa contract extension. Thank you for doing that, because I forgot to put that in my notes. So I'm glad you did in your notes. Do you think that extension has one eye on next season, or potentially other clubs maybe sniffing around him as well?
Probably a bit of both. I mean, I don't think we've really seen enough of him on the pitch as I would like to see.
Mhm.
So in turn, I think it would be hard for other clubs to really look at him and be able to take that gamble. Because admittedly, it's a gamble we've taken on a player who's had injury problems. Um, so I don't think teams would maybe be sniffing around as much. I mean, I have no doubts there probably is interest because he's a top quality football player.
Mhm.
But no, I think it is definitely a little bit of an eye to next season, even maybe this season. When we'll come on to speak about the Hearts game, the ability to start Palaversa, Shinnie, and Nilsson without all three of them being in the midfield
Mhm.
is quite viable in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully maybe a run of games coming under his belt now that that's been announced.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it'd be good to see us getting more minutes out of him and for him to prove what his potential is. With what we've seen announced in terms of defensive reinforcements coming in and the extension to Palaversa, is a striker now the next must in this window?
I think so. I think so. If Sunday was anything to go by, I think our lack of sort of creativity in clinical nature in the top end did kind of hurt us, especially in that first half. So I think with the injury problems, the fact that really we're just relying on Nisbet at the moment, whether he stays or goes, I think another striker is an essential to hopefully be the next in the door.
Yeah, and I think, regardless of whether he stays or goes, you're an injury away to Kevin Nisbet, regardless. of then being left with Peter Ambrose for the rest of the season. And I think, we spoke about on the last episode, the three of us, about Duke potentially being an option through the middle. And I can't remember if we discussed it or not, about kind of the hesitation more against a physical team like Hearts, and we saw that that didn't work. And actually, I think whilst we're recording this episode, Phil, we're just away to announce the signing of Alexander Jensen, aren't we? Because
Yes,
I
I
think
just
you're
got the
facing
just
the
got the Great
notification.
Dane Twitter notification. So if it's not Jensen and it's a big dog, then I'm gonna be bloomin' fuming.
Yeah, so we might have to just come back to that in a little segment. This is the joy of trying to record an episode. I wish we were doing live, because I could have brought out the breaking news banner. I might actually do that for those watching on YouTube. Pape, though, still not back. Jimmy Tillene addressed that in his pre-match press conference ahead of Hearts, saying he's probably still 2 weeks away. So in my mind, probably back for the St Mirren game, which, I mean, with the games coming up, I still feel we should have enough to beat Elgin. The Rangers game's always going to be a difficult one to see us kind of ending this run of form that we're on. In your mind, though, if we're speaking on a striker, would you be happy with another loan between now and the season, given what we've seen out of Kevin Nisbet, or do you think we need to be looking at a more permanent solution? Again, I'm thinking with the likes of Duke being out of contract in the summer, do we need to be looking at a more long-term fixed asset for the club?
I think a long-term fixed asset would be my preference. I'm not opposed to short-term fixes here and there. I don't think the Nisbet loans really worked out the way we'd hoped to. It's not by any means been a disaster, but I just don't think we've got as much out of it as we'd maybe hoped we could have. I think with the model the club's got, striker's a great position to be able to flip. Obviously, we've seen it with Miovski. If you can get a decent striker in at a decent age that can hit the ground running, you're looking at good profits for the club. I'm going to keep on bandying around Richard Coney from Wickham until the cows come home. So if anyone from the club who has Dave Cormack's mobile number, tap him up. I want him up front. So
I've
yeah,
got
I would like to see someone permanent in.
I've got Alan Burrow's phone number.
That would be it. Get him on the live episode. Richard Coney, 900 grand. I think Wickham would take. Surely, I think he's out of contract next year.
Well, I'll drop him a wee WhatsApp after this recording. But yes, Phil, and anyone else watching on
The
YouTube,
quality on
let's
that
see.
is awful, Glad.
Yeah, I can use it. Honestly, it's been so long since I've got to use it. It's actually even the old logo. I'll need to update that as well. But breaking news, the Dons have announced Danish defender Alexander Jensen has joined the club on a 4-year deal from his Swedish club, which I'm still refusing to pronounce on this. The deal is subject to visa and immigration formalities. The versatile 23-year-old, who has also played for other clubs in Scandinavia, again, I am not going to murder their pronunciation, is pleased to officially make his move to Tawdry following lots of speculation. Jensen says, "I'm very happy as soon as I heard of the interest from Aberdeen. I wanted to come here, so it's nice to finally be here. Aberdeen is a big club, and I feel this is the right step for my career. The club were determined in their pursuit of me. It's nice to feel wanted. I look forward to playing in front of the supporters and showing them what I can do. I will give everything I can for the team this season and in the future." Jimmy Tillene's thoughts on the signing, that goes like this: "It has taken a lot of work by people behind the scenes here at the club and over a number of months. We're pleased to get this deal over the line. It's another piece of the jigsaw complete in terms of strengthening the squad and providing reinforcement, particularly as we are experiencing some long-term injuries at the moment. He's one of the highest performing players in Sweden, so it's a bit of a coup for us to get him to Aberdeen. A versatile player, so he will offer us flexibility across key areas of the pitch. He's currently at the end of a close season, so he may take a little time to get up to speed, but we will work hard with him in the coming days and weeks, and we are confident he will have a positive impact for Aberdeen this season and beyond." So that is Alexander Jensen, who's joined the club on a 4-year deal. Bit of breaking news as we record, but I think, Phil, obviously key is he's got to get up to fitness. We saw that, I think, really clearly with Ockles at the weekend, that he needs time to get up to fitness. But that versatility and the fact that the club seem to have been pursuing him for a long time is quite encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. I think the going back to your Ockles point there, I think obviously he's not had much game time for Preston, but I think also some of the comments I've seen about him, he barely got a touch of the ball, which I think some of the comments on Ockles were unfair, but might come to that a little bit when we
Yeah.
cover the Hearts game. But yeah, no, like I say, great state of intent from the club. Um, knew nothing about this boy until about 4 days ago or whenever it was, and yeah, been really excited to see him coming in. Everybody looks good in the highlight reel,
Yeah.
but I've not even letting that take away from it. The free kick that's been doing the rounds on Twitter recently. Really looking forward to seeing him coming in, and also just interested to see where he fits in.
Mhm.
Obviously, whether he is used at right back or whether he's sort of propped elsewhere across the back line or midfield or centre forward at this rate. So yeah, really
Well,
looking forward to it.
are you going to say what you said to me in the pub then on Saturday, where you think he'll be played?
I might do a little inverted left back. I can feel it in my bones. Jack Mack is outdoor.
Are we Jack McKenzie replacement? We didn't see him in the squad on Sunday.
I think that was due to injury, supposedly.
Aye, injury.
Injury,
Aye.
maybe.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right, let's move on to the football then. We'll speak about the Hearts game. Four changes, three of the back four that started the previous game all out, as was Duke. I think very telling how many changes were made to the defence, as we said, injury to Jack McKenzie. Saw James McGarry come in his place. And for me, I know a few people are maybe saying that Ross Doohan is a contender for top performing Don, given his heroics later on, which we'll come on to. But I thought James McGarry was absolutely superb. A player that's probably been criticised, maybe people weren't expecting so much, but I was probably James McGarry's best performance at the weekend.
Absolutely agree. I travel to the games of Four Threads and we do a man the match after each game. And I was the sole vote for McGarry. Everybody else went for Doohan, which understandably he did
The
save us
easy
a point.
option.
He did save us a point. But yeah, I was like you. I thought McGarry was brilliant, especially that first half. Defensively, I thought he was excellent. Um, really tried to snap onto balls and get us going forward in a really positive way. Couple of good chances, flashing it across the box. And like I put on Twitter, I think people have kind of written him off, maybe because he's came from the A League. But I don't think become the best left back in a league for a league winning team by being shite, unfortunately. I think there is a player there and we've just not really been able to utilise him to the best of his abilities.
And I think that both of us have also spoken about his ability going forward and how he'll suit Talene's style. And I think we saw enough of that at the weekend to maybe know that not everything we say is complete nonsense. And we kind of do maybe sometimes know what we're talking about on here.
Yeah, it's a flash in the pan occasionally when we get something right, but we'll take those flashes in the pan as much as we can.
Yeah. For every Angus MacDonald shout, we'll throw in a James McGarry shout as well.
Happy days.
Um, we started though the first half extremely positively. A string of corners and close chances. Obviously, you'll have had a better view of how close we did come. I've not watched the highlights back, but I believe the Christers Tober's chance in that string of corners was extremely close, and I think Craig Gordon pulled off a really good save from one of the sets. And I think the only disappointing thing was the kind of momentum of the corners kept getting halted by VAR checks. I know the first corner, I did wonder if there was a bit of handball involved in there, but it just felt like every time we got a corner, it was like, hold on, we'll just check that nothing's gone wrong. Okay, now you can take it. And Hearts, obviously, every time got a chance to reset.
Yeah, it was really odd. There seemed to be long stoppages for things that weren't, in my opinion, as clear cut as others. I think the one that sticks out in my head is as much as I didn't think it was a penalty. Tope's attempted ball into the box, and I think it was maybe Penrice, slid
Mm.
across to try and block it, and it hit his hand. It was grounded, so I don't think you can give it to Pen. But it seemed like nothing was checked for that. But then the most
Yeah.
random things got the longest stoppages in the world, and I think yeah, McLean in general, I think really just sucked the flow out the game. Really wasn't a great performance from him on both ends at times. Really, I think more went into Hart's favour. But Penrice getting soft fouls here and there, and then getting effectively chop challenged in the knee by a fallen Toby Keskinen, waved play on. Really didn't make any sense.
But Tope v Penrice seemed to be an interesting battle throughout the game. Penrice going down holding his stomach when he wasn't even touched by Topi's high boot. And then obviously, as you said, that the tackle, I'm actually really glad Stephen McLean didn't give that as a foul, because the two of them were at it and Penrice was pulling back Topi Keskinen, who then seems to have the worst boots in the Aberdeen team because he can never stay on his own 2 feet. He's always slipping and sliding. But it was just so comical the way he slid and took Penrice out. I mean, I'm more surprised McLean didn't give the free kick, given he was giving every other decision to Hearts. I mean, how Cammy Devlin avoid being booked in that game was unbelievable for literally rugby tackling Duke in the second half. But yeah, I thought McLean was absolutely awful. And I've also just got a flashback to the end of the first half when we were just away to be clean through on goal and he blew for half time. But yeah, I thought he ruined what was, in general, probably not the best game and probably left Sky wondering why they televised the game. But as much as we speak about, our strikers not being prolific in front of goals, Topi Keskinen has the best chance of the first half. And look, I do think Topi had another great game at the weekend. Another, you can't fault the effort that he was put in, but people are going to keep coming back to his final product. And you can't help but feel that chance in the first half. He's got to be, some people will say he's got to be scoring, but for me, he's got to at least be working Craig Gordon. It's a bad miss, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the exact same as you. It was a brilliant ball through from Nisbet, and I think, in my opinion, probably should have been tucked away. And obviously it's on his weaker foot, but yeah, minimum hitting the target there, and giving Gordon something to do. I think in general his end product was on the poorer side on Sunday, which was unfortunate because, like I say, he was here, there, and everywhere. And when I say we lacked creativity up front, that's not put on Tope's shoulders. He
Mm,
was the creativity up front for us
yeah.
that game. Um, but yeah, could have been a completely different first half. I think if we were able to capitalize on those chances.
Yeah, another player in terms of creativity, since you mentioned it there. Now I have to watch how I pronounce his name because I was told today that I have to remember my Gordon's education and it should be pronounced Leighton. So, what did you make of Leighton Clarkson's performance? Rewarded with another start after I thought a decent performance last time out. Um, he's a player that certainly, I don't know, is frustrates the right word, Phil?
I would say so. I would say so. I mean, there was a shout a few rows behind me in the south stand, which one got a chuckle out of me, but two made me entirely agree, which was maybe if he turned more of these no-look passes into look passes, would be doing something here. Which I think was one of my gripes with him at times, try to play these really cute little round the corner no looks, or everything has to be the final ball. I think there was times where he really could have just kept it simple and sort of kept us in control of the ball. Thought the first sort of 10, 15 minutes he was really good,
Mhm.
sort of doing what he does best, sort of taking the ball in tight spaces, pulling the midfielder out and getting the ball forward. But I think after that, I don't know if it was maybe a lack of confidence or a little bit of frustration on his own part that he didn't really have too much of an out ball to go for. Um, where he did sort of start getting a little bit slack, maybe shying away a little bit from the battles in midfield. And I felt as high up as he was compared to Palaversa and Shinnie, I don't think he was doing enough to get himself into the box at times.
But for as high up as he was playing, he was collecting the ball extremely deep on several occasions. And we saw under Barry Robson when he was playing in that quarterback role, as Barry Robson called it, he wasn't effective. He needs to be up in that 10 and receiving the ball and then being able to play passes as we've seen him already this season play exquisite passes, just not consistently enough. So yeah, that was definitely frustrating. I think the other thing as well is, well, I'll come on to it now. Do you think we were the better team on Sunday?
First half, yes, for the most part. Second half, no. And overall, I think a nil-nil was basically all that game had in it.
Yeah, I remember messaging Willie McPherson midweek when the rumours around Liam Boyce leaving came about, and I said, Sunday's got nil-nil written all over it. I says, we can't score, can barely create, and Hearts are relying on a 17-year-old Like I really wish I put it on. Um, I don't know if we were the better team overall. I mean, I thought we started the better of the two teams. I felt we allowed Hearts to grow into the game. And unfortunately, Stephen McLean allowed Hearts to dictate the tempo of the game because every 50-50 went Hearts' way. Every slight bit of contact, they hit the deck.
And I think that just reminded me as well about Steve McLean. I think another thing that wound me up was, I think it was Oyagoke, and
mm,
went down without a head knock, and he
yeah,
stopped a Don's counter to go back for it. But then Kevin Nisbet, I think, was it maybe the second half, could have still been the first potentially, went down holding his hamstring over near the byline, whilst I think Aberdeen were trying to defend a corner, and McLean just let it go on as if nothing was happening. There just seemed to be no consistency. And like I say, it just broke the game up too much to, I allowed Hearts to come back into that.
yeah. I noticed with that Ayagoke one though, he did say it was a head injury, but there was absolutely no chance that was a head injury as well. Liam McLeod said it's one of the worst games he's ever watched. I think that's a bit harsh, Liam.
Did he never come
Um,
to injury over the last 2 years?
I think it was a bit harsh, but I can see why it was. It wasn't pretty on the eye. Um, but I think for me, the biggest frustration when we're speaking about were we the better team or not, if you look at the chances that Hearts created, obviously they missed a penalty. Ross Doohan also had another terrific save to make from Hearts' new striker Elton. Um, we didn't test Craig Gordon of,
No,
for me, any note. I think he makes one save out from those string of corners, as I mentioned in the first half. But other than that, I don't really remember him doing anything.
no. I think second half especially, I don't think we had a single shot on target. I think we actually only had two shots on target, two shots in general, sorry, for the entire second half, and not a single one on target. And I think that's where it was quite frustrating. I think again, I think it's where it highlighted that we need not only a nine, but I think just that creativity
Mm.
up top. And I don't think that really changed when Duke did come on through the middle. I don't think he had any sort of differing effect to what Nisbet was doing in the first
The
half. I think most notably picking up the ball, try to play it past a defender who was already 5 yards deeper than him.
mm.
Just kind of, I think, summed up how lackluster we have been going forward.
Yeah, the two other things that really frustrated me on Sunday, first of all, was we got a couple of decent position free kicks, but our deliveries into the box were terrible. We either didn't beat the first man or we were offside. I just thought, what was the point of even getting that free kick? And I don't remember us having too many corners to create opportunities from either. But the biggest disappointment was our decision making in the final third. Again, stuck out for me. Jamie McGrath, when he came on, had an opportunity to play in Leighton Clarkson and played a straight pass, which was almost impossible for Leighton Clarkson to get on the end of. Probably Jamie McGrath 3 months ago was probably playing that into Leighton Clarkson's feet for him to run into and get a shot away. But yeah, I thought throughout, as you already mentioned, when Duke came on, he just seemed to knock the ball past defenders and put his head down or feel the slightest of touch and go down. Again, that's another frustrating element. I feel he's crept back into his game that he's looking for free kicks instead of staying on his feet and actually fighting for the cause. Um, yeah, I think the biggest frustration, as I said, final third decision making just seemed to just go out the window.
Yeah, I think it's tough as well because, like I've said earlier, I think despite us having those four players, Clarkson, Nisbet, Oakles, Keskinen so high up the park, we just never seem to have bodies in the box. If someone did manage to get down the byline, and that goes for going back to Palaversa and Shinnie as well, there just seemed to be no desire for the midfielders, as we saw earlier on in the season, to really bust a gut to get in there and create the overload and create the chances. I think as well, like you say, the end product wasn't great, the decision making wasn't great. Personally, I felt that might have been improved with Keskinen starting on the left. I know we always speak about it, but his
Mhm.
left foot does seem a little bit um, an unknown quantity at times. And like I say, I think it was harsh on Ockles. Obviously, the lack of minutes he's had at Preston. I also felt he never really got enough of the ball to really see what he could do with it. I think the flashes he did have with the ball at his feet, he looked all right in my opinion. That one
Yep.
scaffed shot over the main stand aside, I thought he wasn't too bad, but um, yeah, I think the top end needs a little bit of refinement.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge Ockles off Sunday. I think he's definitely a player in desperate need of minutes. I think I agree. Didn't shy away from wanting the ball. First half, don't think he really got it in the second. Um, I just feared for him. I think he pulled up at one point in the second half, and I thought, please don't be his hamstring. Um, but yeah, yeah, like I said, it's too early to judge. We'll give him a few more games and see what he's like once he gets up to pace. Do agree as well that the top end does need refinement. Unfortunately, we're a little bit limited in how we can refine that at this present stage. In terms of a few other performers I want to pick out on before we move on to the goalkeeper, I thought Nilsson was pretty comfortable at centre back, apart from his moment of madness and injury time. Thankfully, didn't come back to haunt him. And I thought Shinnie and Palaversa looked good in midfield. A few people calling Graham Shinnie for their man of the match. I didn't see it personally. I
Yeah,
didn't
a
think
little
it
bit
was.
of fight and a few. I mean, he had that sort of last ditch block in the second half that I was quite impressed he managed to get back and get in the way of. But like I say, he played well. I would still probably say McGarry or Doohan for me.
Yeah, but no, I thought the midfield looked all right. I was just a bit disappointed for Polvara when he came on, that it was into a centre back role because I thought we could have maybe benefited from him in that midfield battle that Hearts were, in my mind, just beginning to. Well, they certainly got the better of in the last 20 minutes of the game as they very much controlled the final stages. Um,
I
but
think it's rather telling though that he came on at centre half. I don't know about you, but if you were making that change, a centre half for a centre half, or putting two midfielders into centre half again, I don't know how telling that was for potentially Angus's position at the club. Don't know what your
Yeah,
thoughts on that are.
uh, yeah, that's very true, and I guess again with the signing of Jensen now being announced as well, what it means for the future of Angus MacDonald. I don't really agree that he'll be released from his contract. I don't see us doing that. Potentially, just he'll just be kept at the club until in the summer. Given we've mentioned Jimmy Tilleen's comments about long-term injuries, we've seen suspensions kind of being a problem as well. So I think he'll just see out his contract. And it's a shame. I do feel a little bit sorry for Angus MacDonald. I know a lot of people know him from his community trust exploits, and he is a well liked individual, but unfortunately, we're judging people on how they play. And he's not showing that in the last few games as much as we were sitting here calling for him to do so. So yeah, I do feel a little bit sorry for him, but uh, that's the cutthroat nature of football, I guess. And I guess that takes us into Ross Doohan as well, because on the last episode, we were sitting here. Well, I say we, more so me and Callum. You sat quietly in the corner, speaking about how Ross isn't good enough to be a long-term number one for the club. Is he the right keeper? Well, he certainly made me eat my words. Callum's not here to eat his. With a good save from Elton, I did feel it was a little bit dramatic, a little bit of one for the cameras, but that penalty save was absolutely outstanding because it would have been an absolute travesty had Hearts come away with 3 points from that game, because it would have been exactly like Tannadice, where we deserved something from the game and ended up with nothing. But Ross Doohan does extremely well to tip the penalty onto the post, and then we see the game out.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for Super Ross doing in goals because my God, I don't think I could have taken another gut punch 1-0 like that
Yeah,
and kept my sanity, especially against Hearts, and having to come back and be around them would
yeah.
have been even worse, considering especially the fact that George Grant lives a couple streets over from me and I see him most days in Tesco's, so that would have been depressing. But yeah, like you say, I think wasn't a great pen from George Grant. Your gripe could have been it should have been more in the corner probably, but taking nothing away from Ross, he waited right till the last second to get himself over and got a big strong hand behind it. And like I say, really saved our not only our blushes, but Sievert, Hout and Nielsen's as well. Because
Yeah.
he looked like he was almost in tears when that penalty was given. I've never seen a man look so distraught at giving away a penalty. And like I say, I think that the tip over from Elton as well, maybe a slight camera save, one for his highlight reel if he
Mm.
eventually gets a move that Jay might post on Twitter. But yeah, no, they played really well. I think looking a little bit more refined with the ball at his feet as well,
Mm.
which is also good to see. Didn't look as shaky when it was coming back to him.
Yeah, and I think, for his confidence as well, hearing him and Graham Shinnie speak post-match about the confidence that hopefully a clean sheet will give not only to Ross but also the defence as well, because we have been leaking goals for fun, and the goals that we are conceding have been soft. So especially with a trip up to Ibrox coming up, I'm sure that'll do them the world of good. And also, um, good, possibly have to give credit to the goalkeeping coach as well as Ross as well, because they've obviously done their work, as that's the first penalty George Grant's missed for Hearts as well. He had a 100% record up until then.
I think it's
Um,
three out of four on the penalty save front for the Dons keepers this season. So definitely a lot better work being done than the previous incumbent.
yeah, I know. Well, I was going to say he's already done more in terms of penalty saves than Kel Roos had done as well. So yeah, no, well done to Ross, earning us that point. Can it be a turning point though, Phil?
Hopefully, I think it's a shame that Rangers won in the manner that they did at the weekend against St Johnstone. You weren't really wanting them to have any sort of momentum going into that game, in the hope that the turning point could be
Mhm.
Ibrox, because nothing would be sweeter than that. Um, but it's a game of 90 minutes. Hopefully, like you say, this gives the back line that little bit of confidence. These new signings as well, not only come in to improve the squad, but maybe put that fire up the backsides of some of the players who they could be replacing positionally, to maybe up their performances as well. Um, and look, I think we're going into Wednesday on this current run with as little expectation as possible. But I think, if we see an improved performance, potentially come away with something at Ibrox, and then, all eyes on the Scottish Cup, try and get a comfortable win to boost our confidence at the top end of the pitch. And hopefully that'll be the start of the turning point.
To be honest, right now I'll just take a 1-0 win against Elgin. Just don't really care how we get through. Um, now you've mentioned a couple of things around the Rangers game. Um, I think I mentioned in our piece for the BBC, it's not exactly a game that will fill you with much confidence in terms of ending the run that we're on. Obviously, 11 games without a win, facing that now being 12. However, I'm going to use a phrase that Jonathan Main hates us using. And I feel that when you're on an 11 game run without a win, you cannot view a trip to Ibrox as a free hit. As even if people are maybe not expecting us to win this game, this very much isn't a free hit. I want to see another solid Dons performance, hopefully taking the game to a very fragile Rangers side. Obviously, we saw the Union Bears protest at the weekend. Could be more scenes like that on Wednesday night as well, and hopefully take advantage, if we can keep the game tight enough for long enough, of that discontent that is circulating around the Glasgow club just now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the Union Bears and the rest of the Rangers support will be doing their walking away at halftime when Peter Ambrose wraps it up and makes it 4-0 in an ideal world. But yeah, no, like you say, it's by no means a free hit. It's exactly what you said. I think all anyone wants to see is this continued improvement, because on the run that we've been on, any improvement is a positive, and it's
Mm.
something that we can really sort of build upon. So as long as they go with fight, go and try and take the game to them. And even if the players on the pitch are sort of feeling as if it's some sort of free hit in a sense, as long as they're going out to try and give us something we can be proud of, and try and get something out of it, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think that's, we want, if the game does turn out to be defeat, I want to be coming on and doing that live reaction to say, well, at least we've had a bit of fight about ourselves, and we've gone down trying, and we're not rolled over, like we've seen before. But I do hope that we can take advantage of, as I said, some of that discontent that is being widely discussed down at Ibrox. However, from an Aberdeen point of view, obviously we've got new signings. Alexander Jensen, as we've already discussed, Dorington in the door as well. How much do you think we'll see of these new signings for the game on Wednesday? I don't know if Jensen will be announced in time. Obviously, because that signing is so fresh, we maybe will see the club announce that tomorrow when most of you are tuning into this episode. But do you expect to see the likes of Dorington and Tobers line up as our centre-back pairing?
Potentially, from what it sounds like, Dorington's ready to go straight into that team. Obviously, he was an unused sub in Spurs' FA Cup game against Tamworth the
Yeah.
other day. Obviously, had minutes off the bench against Southampton, so you'd think he'd be ready to go. Whether Jimmy throws him into a game of that sort of magnitude right off the bat, it's going to be a kind of cauldron of I say,
Noise.
yeah, I was about to say
You were going to say
atmosphere, but
hatred.
yes, toxicity maybe was the word I was going to use. Whether he throws him into that right off the bat would be interesting. I think it'd be great to see Tobers getting exposed to that. Because, like I said, I thought him and Nelson were both quite solid on Sunday against Hearts, so I wouldn't be surprised if he stuck with them. Like you say, I think because Jensen's awaiting sort of, I think, his visa and work permit approval. I'm not sure if that will come in time. I think Tobers was obviously quite quick with him being the captain of a national team. So I think his kind of got fast tracked through ever so slightly. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's ready. But yeah, I think we've got to go with a sort of really positive and aggressive team, I think. I mean, how many times have Rangers looked like they'll crumble under, players getting in their faces? So if we can go with a team that's got that sort of aspect about them, I think it could make for a really fun watch.
And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, we won't know what the Rangers team is until it's announced. And I just wonder if we've maybe a little bit paid attention to how they lined up against St Johnstone at the weekend. With again, I'm thinking with our defence in mind, because I noticed they started Igamane and Danilo. And for me, that's a lot of pace and technical ability in that front two. And the prospect of Nielsen trying to deal with that pace and technical ability frightens the life out of me. And where I maybe see Dorington coming in and being utilised in that sense.
But at the same time, if you're wanting somebody to kick one of them into Rosed, I think you're probably picking Sievert, Helt, and Nielsen as your your centre half there.
But I don't really fancy playing the game with 10 men ahead of that cup tie. But you mentioned taking the game to Rangers and trying to cause them problems like St Johnstone did at times in that second half. Do you think we change our approach to this game? We've seen Jimmy Tillene play that kind of fluid football, looking to play out from the back. I'm not saying he's going to go to Ibrox and park the bus, but do you think there is any part of him that might change his approach to this game and look to, I don't know, try and set up to take a point, or do you think it'll just be same old regardless?
I don't think he's going to try and set up to take a point, and I also don't think it's going to be same old because I feel like we have differed recently, and I think the differing nature of our play is that we seem to have lost that intensity and that really sort of pressing nature of the team. So I think if he can get us back to how we were at the start of the season playing Rangers at Pittodrie, where we were pressing high, we were pressing them quick, and we weren't letting them sort of stroll out from centre half and take up the park. I think if we can get back to that, then that would be great. But I can't see him parking the bus. It's just not in his nature, I don't think.
I agree. I'm just wondering if, a lot is being made about the run that we're on. The only thing that does fear me for Wednesday is if we do, find ourselves on the receiving end of a heavy defeat, what that does for a team that already doesn't look full of confidence ahead of that Scottish Cup tie, because a lot of noise will certainly be made from the press. About the banana skin or the oil spill that we've already mentioned that cup tie becomes on the back of a heavy defeat. Hopefully there is some shoots of positivity going into that. Jimmy Tillene's been ringing the changes in recent weeks. 3-4 changes have been the norm. Do you expect similar numbers ahead of the game on Wednesday?
I think somewhat. I think there's definitely going to be, I think a minimum of two. I've got no idea where they're going to come, but I think just with the sort of games in quick succession, I think he is going to have to rotate some legs potentially. Like I say, I think maybe a change up top, some way to get Keskinen out on the left for me would be ideal, just to have him in what is, in my opinion, is his best performing position. But I think there is probably a lot of question marks across the pitch on who might be starting. Will he maybe go for Duke through the middle, like he tried in the second half against Hearts? Um, will he potentially put McKenzie back in if his injury has gone away or whatever the circumstances may be?
Jamie
Um,
McGrath for Leighton Clarkson.
yeah, that there are these question marks across the pitch where he does have the potential to make those changes. Um,
And I guess the other change as well is with the signing of another centre back, do you then move Nielsen back into midfield, and is that at the expense of Palaversa?
Yeah, potentially, because I mean, Palaversa is one of those players that I think when you can get your foot on the ball more, he's ideal. Would he maybe struggle at Ibrox to have that freedom, and have that ability to get his foot on the ball all the time? Potentially not. You maybe are wanting someone who's going to break it up a little bit more, but as we said before, it is sometimes tough watching him and Shinnie in that pivot together.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see him potentially going down that route. Um, to pull Palaversa as that sort of quality on the ball player off the bench when the game does get stretched a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. No, and I think that's kind of perfectly reasonable to assume, there's a lot to ponder for not only Jimmy Talene, but us as fans and those of you that are maybe listening to this podcast on the way down to Ibrox on Wednesday. Hopefully you'll have a safe journey and return up the road with some points. That would be absolutely lovely. And as I said, we will be back live on YouTube at full time to react to everything relating to that game. And I'm sure, as Callum is hoping, potentially a new striker in the door by then as well. But I think he's maybe expecting a bit too much of the Aberdeen board if we get a striker in between now
Well,
and then.
I was going to say, I don't think his expectations are too high. His words were 3 weeks to get a striker in that can hit a barn door. So I don't think he's setting them too highly.
No, I mean, it's the bare minimum we're needing right now. But thank you very much to everybody that's tuned into this episode. Remember, if you've been watching on YouTube, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe ahead of that live on Wednesday night as well. If you've been listening on audio as well, remember to follow us, get those notifications on, because we will have that live episode turned around and out to you for Thursday morning as well. So until next time, thanks very much for tuning in.